All right, it is 7:32, so we will get started and call to order the June 15, 2021 meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. My name is Mike Bossenbrook. I'm the chairman of the board, and I want to welcome our really full house tonight. Kind of a momentous occasion. This is our first meeting in person since March of last year, so it's really nice to see all my colleagues face to face and to be in person, so welcome. Also, briefly want to just introduce, we have a few new changes to the composition of our board this month as a result of some of the selections from the City Council and some internal voting last month. So I just want to first of all recognize our Mr. Kenkry, who previously joined us as an alternate and as of last month or so is now one of our permanent members of the board, one of our 7 permanent members. So congratulations on your promotion. And also want to welcome our 2 new alternate members. We have Mr. Jeff Forster and Ms. Barbara Chambers. And they are actually sitting in tonight because we have 2 of our other members not able to attend. So welcome, get thrown right into the mix tonight to hear a couple cases. So we're glad to have you as well. And also, I guess as of last month, I am now the new board chairman for the ZBA. So be gentle with me as we work our way through the agenda. And to my left, Mr. Eisenbacher is now going to serve as our vice chair. So thank you to him as well. Appreciate that. With that, I guess we'll jump into our agenda for tonight. And our first item is our roll call. And if Mr. Evans could call the roll.
Yes, Mr. Krinke.
Yes.
Here. Mr. Green.
Here.
Ms. Chambers.
Here.
Mr. Eisenbacher.
Here.
Mr. McCauley.
Here.
Mr. Forster.
Here.
Mr. Bossenbrook.
Here. All right, thank you. And let's move on to item number 2, which is a proposed resolution to amend our rules of procedure to permit members of the public to address an electronic meeting. And Mr. Eisenbacher, we actually have the substance of that printed in our agenda, but if you could maybe read that for everyone.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make the resolution resolve that the Troy Zoning Board of Appeals amends its rules of procedures to permit members of the public to address electronic meetings by adding a new section 10 to the bottom of Article 2 as follows. 10, electronic meetings. Members of the public may address an electronic meeting in the following 3 ways. A, public comments may be submitted via email. Email received as provided by the rules will be read aloud during the meeting. Email comments may be limited to 3 minutes. B, public comments may be submitted via voicemail. Voicemail received as provided by the rules will be played during the meeting. Voicemail comments may be limited to 3 minutes. C, members of the public may attend the electronic meeting remotely and participate in a public comment period as provided by the rules. Comments may be limited to 3 minutes.
Second.
Second from Mr. Green. Any discussion on this? Yeah, Mr. Green.
I would actually like to propose
Got a little feedback there.
the art got sensitive. The phrasing is such that it looks like this only addresses when we are meeting electronically. And I would change the phrasing such that it is members of the public may electronically address meetings, so that it is not limiting to the public whether or not the board is meeting in person, as I believe the purpose of this is to provide convenience and safety to the public at large and should not be restricted to if the board is not meeting in person. And so my motion would be to alter the language to state, or I move to amend the language to state members of the public may address meetings electronically in the following ways. Second? No?
Any second on that?
Yeah.
Do we have a second?
It's dead.
No, okay, then the motion would fail.
Okay. So is there a motion to,
Or any further discussion?
or any further discussion on, or is there any further discussion on the resolution as presented?
And did we have a motion? Did we have a motion and a second on that?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So we have a motion to approve and a second on the original language?
Right,
Yep.
okay.
Okay. Any discussion on that? I don't believe so.
Okay, roll call vote.
Call a vote?
Okay, Mr. Bossenbrook,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Chambers.
Do I get to vote?
Yes, you get to.
I don't know. Sorry.
What did you say? I didn't hear you.
I said I don't really know. So can I pass?
No, you
No,
have
I
to,
can't pass.
You have to vote yes or no.
I have to what?
you have to vote yes or no.
Okay, I'll have to vote yes then.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Eisenbacher,
Yes.
Mr. McCauley,
Yes.
Mr. Forster,
Yes.
Mr. Kincrey.
Yes.
Motion passes for item number 2.
On to item number 3, our procedure. Mr. Eisenbacher, again, could you read our procedure?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Zoning Board of Appeals is a group of 7 of your neighbors appointed by Troy City Council to decide on requests for variances and other matters that are brought before them. A variance is a relaxation of the literal provisions of the zoning ordinance. Petitioners must indicate a hardship or practical difficulty with the land that would warrant the granting of the variance. Procedure. The board will hear the items in the order they appear on the agenda. When an item is called, the chairman will verify that the petitioner is present, then the city administration will summarize the facts of the case. The petitioner will then be given an opportunity to address the board to explain the justification for the action requested. After the petitioner makes their presentation and answers any questions that the board may have, the chairman will open the public hearing. At the conclusion of public comments, the chairman will close the public hearing. Once the public hearing is closed, no other public comment will be taken unless in response to a specific question by a member of the board. The board will then make a motion to approve, deny, or postpone the request. In order for the request to pass, a minimum of 4 votes are needed. If the request is not granted, the applicant has the right to appeal the board's decision to Oakland County Circuit Court.
All right, thank you, Mr. Eisenbacher. That is our procedure. Let's move on to our number 4 on our agenda, which is the approval of our minutes from last month's meeting, May 2021. And I believe a paper copy was distributed by Ms. Ferens. Any motion on our approval of minutes? Yes, Mr. Green?
I move that we approve the minutes from last month as printed.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Do we have any second?
I will.
Mr. McCauley?
I second the motion.
Thank you. Any discussion, or we can go ahead to vote? Okay, call the vote.
Ms. Chambers,
Approve.
Mr. Bossenbrook,
Approve.
Mr. Eisenbacher,
Yes.
Mr. McCauley,
Yes.
Mr. Forster,
Yes.
Mr. Kincrey,
Yes.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
Very good. Item number 5, looking at our approval of the agenda tonight. Are there any discussion before we approve and move on?
Nope.
Nope? Okay. All right. Well, let's move into item number 6, which is the hearing of the cases. For tonight, we have 2 cases to be heard, and we will begin with item 6A, which is a variance request for Hart Drive. And I will ask Mr. Evans if he could please present on this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Present a brief summary of this matter on my screen here. Let me try to clean that up. So this is a variance request for vacant property on Hart Drive. It's a variance request to construct a new home 30 feet from the front, in this case Virgilia, property line, where the zoning ordinance requires the home to be set back 40 feet. Now, this is an aerial of the subject neighborhood. The property is outlined in red, and the neighborhood's north of Waddles, in between I-75 and Livernois. And I'll continue to zoom in a little closer. As you can see, it's on the corner of Virgilia and Hart. Currently, it's a vacant lot. Now, you can see the yellow overlay. That's single-family zoning, and everything you see in the photo has the same R1B zoning. And that's even a closer view of the property. This is the house that the applicant desires to build. And this is their site plan, and it's just flipped around 180 degrees, so north is to the bottom. So I've circled the proposed setback for Virgilia, and what the ordinance requires is that new structures have to be set back 40 feet from the front property line. Now, in this instance, because they abut two streets, they effectively have two front property lines. They're required to meet the 40-foot setback from both. The applicant is requesting to have only a 30-foot setback from Virgilia, so in order to do that, he's seeking relief from the board tonight. So I'll turn it back over to the board with any questions.
Yeah, Mr. McCauley.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Evans, the in yellow, the setback to the left there, what, I can't read that distance.
Well, let me take a look at the actual agenda packet and see if it provides a closer distance, or a closer view, rather.
It looks like 10, but I don't want to guess.
I think it's 10, but we can always ask the applicant to clarify that. Yeah, as soon as we call the applicant up, maybe he can answer that question for us.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. Any other board members have any questions for the city staff about this matter? No? All right, thank you. Oh, Mr. Green.
Just in the statement of practical difficulty, there is a note, and we'll cover it in a minute, but I suspect you have better knowledge, that at the time of the applicant's purchase, there was no Virgilia. I believe that's right. Is that an accurate statement? And secondly, were there plans on file that Virgilia was going to be constructed?
Yes, Virgilia was never actually constructed for some time. I believe construction started when the cluster development immediately to the west was built, but it had been a paper road. I pulled some old plats, and sometime since the 20s, it actually had been platted in that location, just never constructed.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. I'd like to call the applicant forward for this appeal. If you could, sir, just come up to the podium and come up to the microphone so we can hear you loud and clear. And if you could just identify yourself and your relationship to the property. And as mentioned, we do have your written materials, but feel free to share whatever else you have regarding your request.
Thank you. Can I take out the mask while speaking? Can I take out the mask while speaking?
I believe so. I think that's part of the rules. If you're vaccinated, that's,
If you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask.
Yes.
I've been vaccinated.
So you can take the mask
so
off.
by all means.
Thank you. So good evening, lady and gentlemen. Thank you for the opportunity to present our case. My name is Ravi Shankar Bomnalli. I am currently residing in 264 Harrington Drive, Troy. I am the petitioner or the applicant of this lot. Today I have Ms. Nico Kron, who is my real estate agent, who is going to assist me in answering any questions the board may have. The lot referenced in the petition is subject to R1B zoning guidelines. However, the lot is a non-conforming lot, similar to most of the lots on our drive, as the lot has got a narrowness in the frontage of 92 feet against a requirement of 100 feet. The narrowness of the lot would not have been a concern to build a home. However, with this lot being a corner lot now, there are requirements for 2 front setback requirements. So this poses a challenge in building a reasonably sized home I'm looking at building a 3,600 square feet, 4-bedroom, with a good front elevation, as the double front setback requirements mean I can only build a frontage elevation of 40 feet on a 92 feet, with one side being 10 feet, another side being 40 feet. That leaves only 40 feet out of 92. So the challenge with that is it will become a very narrow structure on a large size lot of 18,000 square feet. And the other thing is, aesthetically, my belief is it will not sit well with the neighboring homes on the Hart Drive on the east side, which are wide ranch-styled homes. And on the right-hand side, or the west side of the property, is also the new development, which is West Troy Meadows, which has got new homes with a reasonably sized homes with a wide frontage. So aesthetically, this will not be looking good. So the request is to allow a setback of 30 feet on the Virgilia side instead of 40 feet. So that will give me a front elevation of 52 feet, which will be a really good development coming up there. While with the narrowness, we can build a 40 feet home. As I said, aesthetically, from an overall appeal perspective, I don't think it will sit well with the overall development. So that's our request today, and thank you once again for hearing me out, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any board members have a question for the applicant? Mr. McCauley.
I'm looking at your proposal that you've submitted, and as I'm looking at the drawing that we had up there earlier,
Yeah.
I noticed that you have a driveway coming in off of Hart to your home,
Yeah.
proposed home, but yet the drawing you gave us, the garage is on a different side of the house. So
So the proposal shows, initially we were thinking about having the garage drive-in on the left-hand side, but now we may end up with the right-hand side garage drive.
Okay. So then your driveway then would be coming in off of Virgilia?
Yeah.
Okay. Opposed to Hart, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Mr. Forster.
Just to confirm, the front facade of the home will face Hart, right?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. So the size of the lot does not allow to build a west-facing home. The only possibility is to build a north-facing home, because if you build a west-facing home, the back setback will be less than 15 feet. If you build a 40-feet home with a front of 40 feet, then that leaves only 10 feet of the back setback. So the only way you can build is a north-facing home. Yes.
Mr. McCauley.
I'm confused, because if you put the garage on the other side, how are you going to access your yard to the south?
Through the home, I'm going to have an opening from the side entry garage. So,
You're going to have to, you won't have any ability to put anything on the back of the house facing to the west, because you only have 10 feet there.
now if I build a
To the east, to the east, you'll have no space there, you only have 10 feet, so you won't be able to put anything there. If you put your garage on the south side, I don't see how you're going to access your yard from a house other than walking out your front door or door out the side of your garage. Is that what you're intending?
No, the garage will be in the front of the house to the north. The entrance will be from the Virgilia side, not from the Hart Drive. So it is going to be in the front.
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand that. I apologize.
Yeah, maybe if you bring up the elevation, I can explain that.
I apologize, I'm just
Yeah, no,
visually,
that's okay.
I'm visually just not seeing it. And I've looked at that property a number of times driving through that area.
And so the elevation what we have chosen is the E elevation, which is on the center, on the right-hand side. So there it is showing the front entry. So that will become, the entrance will become on the right-hand side, which is to the Virgilia. So that garage will stay there, just that the entrance will be on the Virgilia side.
Garage
So-
door faces the side
Side of the
instead of the front.
Pull in, turn left.
Oh, so
So-
you, I see what you're saying. So you're going to, okay. So
Yeah.
the garage door opening will face south.
Face west.
Oh, I haven't, sorry. One to the
It'll
right.
face the side street. instead
Okay,
of the
so
front
then, but the property, the majority of the property is to the south, am I
Yeah.
correct?
So the property is facing.
I'm looking at the drawing, I'm looking at where the placement of the house is on the lot. It looks like it's 40 feet from Hart, it's
Yeah.
going to, proposed, and 30 feet proposed from Virgilia, with the remainder of the lot being to the south. So if I looked at that house, that means that the garage is on the side where the lot will be. So instead of having an access from the house to the backyard or side yard in a sense, there is no access. You have to come out of the house to go through the garage or something like that.
So, if you flip this way, right, the garage will come on the right-hand side. The 30, where you see the 30 in purple, that will be the entrance to the garage, right? So with that entrance, there is no structure apart from that drive into the garage on that side of the lot. So the entire lot is open on the side with 30 feet setback. So you can access next to the, Yeah.
I just want to...
1 second, ma'am. Could you identify yourself for the record?
Yes,
so
I'm
we
sorry.
know?
I'm Nico Crone, and I am Mr. Bomanahali's real estate agent on this property. So I think what's not clear here is that the garage, whether it is a side garage or a front garage, actually has the same footprint. Its position is on the right side. So if you take that square that juts out from the proposed building and put it on the right side, and then have the driveway come to it from Virgilia, that's how so it's not going to be
Okay, I
at
see
the
what
back
you're
of the
saying.
house.
Okay, because
Yeah.
I
So
was
you're-
under the impression that the front of this house was facing Virgilia.
No,
No.
it can't. There's not enough
Okay.
depth. If
All right.
It's only 90
Thank you,
feet.
that's perfectly clear, thank you.
thank you.
Sorry, I wasn't getting.
Any other board members want to ask a question of the petitioner? Yes, Mr. Green?
In addition to perhaps it looking different from the houses in the area, what would, should you choose to continue building, should the board decide no, what would that reduce your square footage to?
I'm sorry, I didn't follow that. Can you?
Sorry, so instead of 3,600
Yeah.
square, what would building on a lot conforming reduce the house to?
Yeah, please.
In theory, it would not be necessary to reduce the total square footage of the home. But if you can imagine a home that, in Royal Oak, they're typically about 40 feet wide. They're frequently very tall, or appear to be tall relative to their width, and then it can be quite deep. Now, this is an extremely deep lot, so that it would be possible to go very far back and make a very long, narrow home and still achieve the 3,600 square feet. I think that's not something that's necessarily desirable to most people. It also would not be in keeping with the general look of the neighborhood. West Troy Meadows is a beautiful neighborhood right next door, and I very much doubt that they would be very happy with that. I don't know if they're commenting tonight, but I could imagine that that would be a problem for them. So yes, in theory, he could achieve the same square footage. I also want to mention that although I work for Mr. Bomanahali, I also have a relationship with the seller, and he has said to me that I am at liberty to say on his behalf that he had no idea when he purchased the land that there was a street. There was a dead-end sign, and he was convinced he was buying a property that he could build on. And in fact, for the very same reasons that my client is having difficulty, he too has difficulty. And it will persist if this variance request is denied. he won't be able to sell it, and my client won't be able to purchase it. So, thank you.
I have one question for the
Yes, please.
applicant. So going back to what we're sort of called to do is examine whether there's a practical difficulty relating to the property itself. And so we have several criteria that we have to go through, that we have to judge whether the applicant, meets each of those criteria. This is sort of related to Mr. Green's question, but as I'm looking at the different criteria, my question is, what is it specifically about the property that would prevent you from building something that is within the existing zoning ordinance setbacks and requirements? You are able to build a structure, is that fair to say?
Yeah, you can definitely build a structure of 2,000 or 3,000 square feet, but as I said, on 18,000 square feet, if someone is investing, you expect a reasonably sized home, which is aesthetically good looking and which is also practical. With a narrow frontage, you also are going to have a limitation with how much kind of light you can have in cross ventilation and all of those challenges. And I didn't bring up the cost factor because I know cost is not a concern for the board. But if you really look at, buying a proper lot there and you are trying to build a custom home, is going to become a really, really expensive proposition. I didn't want to bring in that, but since it is coming up, I thought I'll just bring it up. Because it is going to require extensive design changes to multiple builders. I've spoken to them. None of them have a house which can sit there. They will have to develop something completely new, which means they have to do complete new design and drawings and everything.
Okay, thank you. You can go ahead and have a seat. Oh, did you have a question, Mr. McCauley?
No, I don't.
Okay. So you can have a seat, and we'll bring this back to the board for our discussion.
Thank you once again.
Thank you. Mr. Evans?
And I think the next step we would do is a public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sure.
You're guiding me in the right direction. Thank you. So I will open up the public hearing on this variance request. I don't see anyone in the gallery to speak in person. Do we know if there are any individuals online or in our Zoom meeting seeking to?
It does appear that someone is waiting to speak based on the hand raise on our Zoom. So perhaps if we could ask Jackie.
Yes, Jackie, it looks like there's someone, Ms. Zawoski, who has her hand raised. Could we unmute her and see if she has a public comment?
I am unmuted. Are you able to hear me?
Oh, okay. Yes, we can hear you.
Before I had some comments prepared, but I guess I'm confused now because I was looking at the drawing in the agenda packet and I thought the house was facing Hart, and now I'm hearing it's facing Virgilia. So the 10-foot setback on the side lot would really be a rear setback, or am I misinformed? Something seemed to have changed during this meeting where the front of the house is facing.
Well, ma'am, it's not really a question and answer. I guess it's, we had the discussion with the applicant and the board member regarding the matter, and I guess we take it as it is. Yeah, Mr. McCauley?
Can I interject here?
Sure, go ahead.
That was my mistake. I was incorrect in assuming that it was facing Virgilia, not Hart. It is facing Hart. So that was, what you got was my confusion coming across on there, so I apologize for that. The builder and excuse me, and they're looking at facing Hart still, so that would still be a side setback, not a rear setback. So that was my error in the way I looked at it and the way I was interpreting it. So I apologize.
Okay, so the house and the driveway are going to be off Hart. I'm just trying to understand what's being proposed. And then I'll come with my comments.
I think, ma'am, we can just simply say what's been stated on the record from the applicant. I'm not sure much more to add to that. Do you have any other further comment regarding the petition?
I do. Well, good evening. I'm Lisa Zawoski, representing my father, Ken Zawoski, who lives at 225 Hart, the eastern neighboring property of Case 6A, which we're speaking of at the moment. I'm glad to see the future owner here tonight. I was hoping to see the current owner. Although it appears that variances are being granted more than sparingly as intended, we are not necessarily in opposition to the variance request. However, I think based on the plans provided and what's being discussed, I'm a little confused on what's actually being proposed. However, having a little understanding, or what I thought was understanding of the proposed development, there are a couple of issues related to the proposed development and accompanying variance requests that we wanted to bring up, as well as open the lines of communication. We understand that this may be the first time these issues have been brought to the owner's attention. The trees located along the property line along the eastern property line are in dire need of maintenance, trimming, and removal. They pose a liability and have caused damage to the structures in my dad's yard in the past. Severely hanging and falling branches, sometimes very large branches, pose a physical danger to my father, who spends a lot of time outside, as well as pose unreasonable amount of cleanup and financial burden that my father cannot afford. And if you went back to the close-up of the aerial, you can see the branches that are hanging. My father, who actually turns 80 today, it's his birthday, is on a fixed income and cannot do the tree trimming himself as in the past. And we don't want him to keep trying either. So we request, as a good neighbor, that the owner take immediate action to conduct the required maintenance on the trees hovering over the property and consider strategic tree removal as the development occurs. The plans provided did not indicate whether or not tree removal or a fence are being proposed, and some of the trees may have to be taken down specifically for construction anyway. But we wanted to make it clear that my dad would welcome trees being taken down in this area, specifically the ones on or along the property line that negatively impact his property. My father values the natural aesthetic of the area, and that's why he moved here and enjoyed the woods surrounding his property. However, the unnamed trees have become a nuisance and a burden. In summary, we hope that you can address the dangerous overhanging trees as soon as possible, and that you work with my father, your future neighbor, as development continues in regards to taking down the nuisance trees or commit to routine tree maintenance along the property line as a responsible property owner, so that my father can enjoy his property while you look forward to enjoying your new home. Thank you.
Thank you. And did you say you were from, is it 225 Hart?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Is there any other comments? I don't see any via Zoom. Oh, do I also see a Tracy Zawoski?
Yes, and obviously Lisa is my sister, Ken is my father. He's been there for decades, and the fence issue has never been a problem in the past because that area was totally undeveloped. We appreciate that these issues are not necessarily germane to the instant zoning variance application, but if the variance is approved and the house is built, they will become very important. And we just wanted to open the lines of communication. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Ms. Ferenz, do we have any voicemails or correspondence? I didn't see any. Yes, Mr. Green.
I would actually ask the two representatives for the homeowner at 225 that, because it's not an issue at the moment, regardless of the trees, and I know that they are a serious concern, do you otherwise object to the request of the applicant?
This is Lisa.
We have both of you on mute.
Am I unmuted now? This is Lisa Zaleski.
We can hear you now.
As originally, with the plans originally, we were not in opposition of the requested variance.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Green, you all set? Okay. And I don't believe we have anything else on this matter from the public, so I will close the public hearing portion of this appeal, and I would invite, if the applicant would like to come up and respond in any fashion to the public comment, he can have a couple minutes to do that. Please come up to the microphone.
Sorry, Chairman, I'm not used to this.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah. Once again, thank you for allowing me to explain. Ms. Lisa and Ms. Tracy, I'm not a owner, I'm a potential owner. If the approval is given by the board, I can assure you that I'll strive to be a good neighbor to you and ensure that your concerns are taken care. As part of the plan to develop this, I will be required to remove a lot of trees. Even though I'm not a lover of removing trees because it takes years and years to grow a tree, I would like to remove the trees as minimal as possible while retaining the trees which do not pose a risk or liability to myself or risk to someone else. So you can rest assured that all your concerns related to any tree, impacting you, impacting your property or your house will be taken care. Apart from that, I can also assure you that I will try to be a good neighbor in maintaining a cordial relationship with neighbors if I am successful with my petition. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we will bring it back to the board for discussion on this matter. Would anyone like to be recognized for discussion? Having heard the testimony and reviewed the record?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Eisenbacher.
Yes. Looking at the neighborhood and how the neighborhood was laid out, where the lot sizes, as it was platted, don't match the zoning. In the statement of practical difficulty, the property that's in front of us is actually two properties that were platted that were combined together to get to the 93 feet in the frontage. And it's still not wide enough for basically standard construction. So, and looking at the setbacks of the other houses, looking at the aerial views driving through the neighborhood, this request is not exceptional. And looking at our statement of practical difficulty, A, it is the exceptional narrowness of this property compared to the others in the neighborhood. B, it was not for a separate location. C, it's not of a personal nature. D, it was not created by the current or previous owner because when this subdivision was laid out, it was in compliance. It's in subsequent time that the setbacks became greater than when it was laid out. And E, this proposal in front of us actually enhances matching the rest of the neighborhood and the new subdivision that is directly adjacent. I'm getting my directions. It's directly to the west. And it does improve the situation because it'll improve the sight lines on that corner by getting rid of the tall trees that they're located close to the corner as people go in and out of the subdivision. So for all those reasons, I would like to move for approval.
Have a second?
Thank you.
Second from Mr. Green. Motion on the table is to approve the variance request for the reasons stated by Mr. Eisenbacher. Do we have any discussion on the pending motion from other board members? Mr. Kenkre?
So I'm in agreement with Mr. Eisenbacher's assessment. The plot is narrow, and given that it sits on two side streets, if you were to build a home, which would be then even narrower than the neighborhood homes, and it would be deeper than the neighborhood homes, it would just kind of look out of place. So I think, given that the plot itself is narrow and it is sitting on two side streets, which is not the case for the other homes, I think I'm looking forward to approving.
Thank you, Mr. Kenkre. Mr. Green?
I'd like to add just a note specifically. I agree with everything that's been said so far. Also, the variance will not be harmful to the essence and will in fact enhance the safety. In addition to the trees, as the request change is not of a personal nature, the planned 3,600 feet could be done lengthwise. The applicant may or may not be willing to accept that, but 3,600 feet is possible, which is part of what makes it not personal. It could be constructed another way, but by doing it the other way, it becomes more useful as a piece of land, it fits in better, and also does not extend further down, so it also improves general sightlines throughout the neighborhood as well as at the corner, just into the area at large, instead of having essentially a large block further along that edge. So it's quite odd, but it makes a lot of sense to me to make this one.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Green. Mr. McCauley?
First of all, I'd like to apologize again to the Zawoskis for me muddling the information. The house is facing Hart, so the original plan really hasn't changed. It was more my confusion, so I want to apologize to them. And I agree with Mr. Eisenbacher on this proposal. I think it's a great proposal. So.
Okay, thank you. For myself, I'll just say I appreciate my colleagues' very thoughtful comments. I see the virtue, obviously, in developing the property, putting a house on it, clearing up the trees. I think all of that can be accomplished without the variance request. I don't see the exceptional characteristic of the property. I see the nature of the request more of a personal nature because it's really regarding the size of the house, not the inability to build on the parcel. So for that reason, I would not support the motion. I think we don't have any further comments, so we can call the motion.
Okay, and this is a motion to grant the variance. Mr. Eisenbacher?
Yes.
Mr. McCauley?
Yes.
Mr. Bossenbrook?
No.
Mr. Forster?
Yes.
Mr. Kenkre?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Chambers?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. You have your variance granted. Congratulations, and have a great evening.
Can I come up on this?
I'm sorry, you can come forward if you would like briefly.
Once again, thank you everyone for your attention and for consideration. I really appreciate everything what you do. Once again, I'm just grateful, and I look forward to be a resident of Troy for some time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too. Thank you.
All right, let's move on to our next item, 6B, our variance request for 5305 Rangemore. And Mr. Evans, if you could, when you're ready, present to us on this request.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Once again, I've got something on the overhead here. Looks like I'm not quite ready. Okay, and this is for property at 5305 Rangemore. And this is a variance request to construct a home addition 14.5 feet from the rear property line where the zoning ordinance requires the home to be set back 25 feet. Now, the subject property, again, is outlined in red, approximately the middle of the screen. This property is in a neighborhood north of Long Lake and east of Rochester. And I'll continue to zoom in on the property at 5305 Rangemore. This is part of a cluster development. So one of the slides I'll show you, it's hard to see here, but one of the slides I'll show you is that there is some open space that surrounds the entire residential development. But what they want to do is, this is a view of the back of their house. They want to construct an addition in this portion here. And it's a one-story addition. And they've given us some elevations and what it will look like. And this is their site plan. Now, with the cluster development, the required setback from the rear property line, which is this line here, and I guess you'd call it the southwest property line, that's the rear property line, and the house is required to be at least 25 feet setback from there. The proposed addition, if approved, would be set back 14.5 feet. So he needs relief from the board in order to proceed. And this is the site plan for the cluster development. It's rotated to the left 90 degrees, but the subject property is here. I'll zoom in a little closer. Actually, that's the close one. Let me try to move this. Well, it's hard to, but anyways, he's on lot 8, which is right there. That's the rear property line, and so this whole area here, including behind him, is the open common area. And I did include on the days for y'all tonight a November 2020 memo written by the planning director, and we provided this in our last variance request for cluster development. And just to refresh the board on the how the process works, that when the developer chooses this option, and this is an option, he certainly had the ability to not choose this option, simply develop under the regular zoning setback requirements. They do receive a corresponding density bonus for the number of units they can put in, but the trade-off is that they have to provide the open space. And that's just detailed in that memo. So I'll turn it back over to the board for any questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Evans or city staff regarding this variance? Yeah, Mr. Forster?
Again, I'm just want to confirm that that space is common space for the whole development, right?
Right.
And we would look at that as a space that had a purpose and was defined, and that purpose was defined specifically for what it was supposed to be used for.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other board members? Any questions? Nope, I don't see any. So let us move on to the applicant for their presentation. And I understand from Mr. Evans that, is it Mr. Neff is joining us via Zoom?
Yes, sir.
Good evening, sir. We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Absolutely.
Okay, very good. Feel free to go ahead and present to us on your variance request.
So, I mean, as Mr. Evans stated, we do back up to a common area. With the setback being 25 feet, obviously we encroach almost no matter what we do. And as you can see as well, I can't remember the actual corner of the house, but the one corner of the house encroaches itself. So with that being said, I mean, we're kind of at a standstill, if you will, to be able to add much of anything. I know that, that area was designed, like you said, as a common area. However, it is a wide open space. I don't know if it gets used or how it's used, but I just don't feel like we would be encroaching upon anybody's personal space, let's put it that way.
Okay, thank you, sir. I'll ask my fellow board members if there's any questions of this time for the applicant.
I have a question.
Mr. McCauley?
What's preventing you from building out towards, I can't read the street name, is it
Ellery?
Ellery? Opposed to the back?
That would be a customer and sales topic, to be honest. I'm just part of the permitting process. That is an option, I guess, that the sales team and Mr. Patel could explore. I don't know what that side of the house has for us to build off of that we could put that sunroom addition and be able to access it without putting a new entrance, so to speak.
Okay. Mr. McCauley, you set?
Thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Green?
Quick follow-up on that, actually. Are there expected to be, or are there presently other houses or other structures directly on the other side of Ellery?
To my knowledge, I am not sure. That would be a Mr. Patel answer without looking at it directly.
I'm going to answer my own question. There are. Thank you.
Okay.
Are there any other board members, questions for the applicant? Hearing none, I will now get this right. Open the public hearing. And there's no one in the chamber at this point, so I will see, are there any folks? I see a hand on the Zoom meeting. Mr. Patel, is there a member of the public who wishes to speak on this?
Yes, I'm actually the owner. I don't know if you can hear me.
Okay, yeah, we can. Yes, Mr. Evans.
I think I thought I saw his hand go up just before the public hearing
Did I
opened.
miss that?
But maybe it wasn't, but maybe it wasn't clear between, with the Zoom, everybody's in a different location on the applicant's side. But perhaps, and maybe he could be asked this, maybe he wanted an opportunity to speak during the presentation, but was just navigating the Zoom.
Okay, well.
Reopen the public hearing. Or, I'm sorry, the petitioner comments.
So let me backtrack then, and let me go back to the previous applicant presentation, and I'll go back to Mr. Patel. If you, sir, could identify yourself, if you're here on behalf of the applicant, and what it is you'd like to address the board with.
Yeah, no problem. Can everyone hear me clearly?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Hello, my name is Chetan Patel. I'm the owner of 5305 Rangemore Drive. So what would we like to do is actually put a sunroom in our backyard. And I would like to request that you approve this variance to build a sunroom because of several reasons. One reason is that our house is a corner lot. Because of that, many vehicles you look at that main street that comes, many vehicles drive by and they can kind of see our backyard. The sunroom would help with that privacy issue. Another reason is that our house is kind of angled, so that really kind of limits our setback. So that's one thing, that's kind of hurting us as well. One final reason is that this house is the backyard is mostly facing like the east and west. The sun is always shining, on our backyard. So if we had a sunroom, I think we could kind of enjoy it more, instead of having a patio. Hopefully you guys can take all that into considerations and approve this request. I think one of the questions that was asked is why didn't we build on the other side? I mean, on the other side is our kitchen. And we don't have an opening, and so the side that we want, we actually have an opening that kind of goes out, sliding doors that actually goes out to our backyard.
So let me ask the board members, now that Mr. Patel has had a chance to speak, any questions for Mr. Patel? Mr. Green?
Was your rear property line as it is today at the time you purchased the home?
Yes.
Thank you.
I have a question, Mr. Patel. Can you just clarify me, so the timeline here, you are the current owner of 5305?
That is correct, yes.
And was it Mr. Neff built the house for you?
No, he did not. He's actually our contractor for building the sunroom.
Okay.
We actually bought this property last year from Mondrian.
I'm sorry, I missed that. You said you bought the house last year?
Yes, from Mondrian.
Oh, Mondrian.
Okay. And was Mondrian is the developer of the house?
Yes.
Okay. So you're the first owner of the property, the first homeowner?
Yes, I am.
And when you had the house built, or when Mondrian designed it, did you contemplate the sunroom and placing it within the zoning ordinance parameters?
No, I did not think about that at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Any other board members? Okay, I think let me go back to the public hearing, open it back up again. And now I will see, are there any other, I don't see anyone else on the Zoom meeting who appears to be a member of the public. And I don't see anyone in person here. So I will turn to, we have several emails that we received, and I will ask Mr. Eisenbacher to read and/or summarize what we have received.
Okay. The first email is from Charles and Catherine Springs at 5256 Hale, which, looking at the map on page 39, is diagonal to the north. To whom it may concern, we respectively request the Zoning Board of Appeals deny the variance request for 5305 Rangemore by Kelly Neff of Great Day Improvements. The community where the owner resides is already a high-density area. Numerous builder promises for separation between the old and the new were not fulfilled. We feel allowing additional construction that goes even closer to the lot line would set a highly unfavorable precedent. Questions to consider. Why would a brand-new large home lived in for less than a year need to request a variance for additional construction? Will it be a multifamily housing or for a potential business in a residential neighborhood? Next one. It is from Keith Fillmore. Does not state the location relative to the subject property. He wrote, a variance request to construct, my wife and I are concerned that approval of this variance over 10 feet would set a precedent and prefer that the setbacks are enforced as much as possible. The openness and spacing of residential housing has a large effect on the desirability of said properties. The third is from Steve Dickerson from 5268 Hale Drive, which I believe, if we look at the picture, is one house further to the north than the first comment that I read. To whom it may concern, we back up to this new subdivision still under construction and live three houses down from 5305 Rangemore. On top of Troy, unfortunately, allowing for high-density housing in new subdivisions, approving substantial additions without the required setback on these already smaller lots sets the wrong precedent. We are concerned that the addition this large could potentially result in either a multifamily dwelling or a business with employees. As we look at the northwest elevation of this home, our view of what little wooded area that is left would also be impacted. Please see the attached photo taken from our backyard of the side of 5305 Rangemore. Now that the last home is nearly complete in this new sub, we are beyond tired of ongoing construction, noise, dust, and heavy equipment traffic. Therefore, we urge the Troy Zoning Board of Appeals to vote against this variance. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Eisenbacher. And I had a note also that I believe we received a voicemail respecting this request, and I don't know.
Looks like Jackie turned her mic off. I think she might be, Jackie, are you able to play that voicemail?
As she's preparing it, I will just note that a quick search finds that Keith Fillmore lives at 5292 Hale, which is on the circle outside of, it's not even pictured with address, but it's about halfway up the road to the west with the cul-de-sac. On the, it's in fact, it's in the cul-de-sac, pardon.
Okay, thank you.
And that was, Mr. Chair, that was Jackie calling while
Okay.
Mr. Green was commenting, so I was listening to her, and she did confirm there are no voicemails.
There are no voicemails.
That's correct.
Okay. I guess I misheard that. Okay. Well, I believe that we will close now the public hearing as to this variance request. And I would give the applicant, either Mr. Patel or Mr. Neff, an opportunity to respond, if they care, to the public comments.
I'd like to say something real quick if I may.
Sure. Go ahead, sir.
So, Mr. Neff here again, sorry. So, just in response to the one comment made by the public, as far as construction noise and dust, you know, this would be, I mean, we're looking at a total of maybe a week's worth of work between the construction of the deck and the room itself. No heavy equipment, so to speak. At most a post hole digger, like an auger, but that's about it. Outside of that, I mean, it's, especially the sunroom portions, it's fairly quick and simple and with minimal noise and dust and debris and that kind of thing. So just wanted to put that in there. Outside of that, I have nothing else.
Thank you, sir.
May I say something if possible? I am Mira. I'm also the homeowner.
I'm sorry, could you say it again, ma'am?
Yeah, my name is Mira Patel. I am also the homeowner at 5305 Rangemore, and I'm Chitin's wife.
You may go ahead.
So with regards to trees, we are actually planting more trees on our own on this side as well. We appreciate the greenery, and I do realize, I think a lot of neighbors are upset with maybe the developer that there were supposed to be more trees that were maybe left over as we talk to our neighbors, our new neighbors. We realize that some of them are upset, but we are actually planning to put in more arborvitaes ourselves just to make the area more greener. We realize that that is a huge factor that everybody is attracted to. The sunroom that we're hoping to have is not going to take down any trees. We actually wanted to plant even more trees and more shrubs. That's our personal goal around here. That's part of the reason why we, we like this area. So I just wanted to put that out there to the public, I guess.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you for your comments. So at this point, I will bring this back to the board for deliberation, consideration, discussion. Yes, Mr. McCauley.
First of all, I struggle with any setback being encroached that will affect neighbors or to another neighboring yard. As an example, I'll use the item on our agenda we had right before this. He asked for a reduced setback facing the street. That did not affect any neighbor. That was to his street. So that's why I voted yes on that. If I looked at this right now, this setback that they're wanting to encroach into is very similar to other ones that we have and that I've said no to. And I look at the property to the one side, even though there is no entryway, there could be an entryway off their kitchen to a sunroom. And if I look at Ellery, or whatever the name of that street is, that is not the main thoroughfare coming in and out of that development as the one to the farther north and to the east, a direct line out of the subdivision area would be more direct. So from my standpoint, this could be done without asking for a variance, and I do not like anything that encroaches back into neighbors at all. So I would not be in favor of this myself.
All right, thank you, Mr. McCauley. Any other board members? Mr. Green?
I have sympathy for the petitioner. It's a very strange lot shape. So one of our key points, there's definitely some distinctness and uniqueness to the shape of the property. But while it has been a very, very interesting year and many people, changed their plans, and this year has done that for many people, and perhaps, and it's speculation and irrelevant, but perhaps they're now working from home and feel the need for some more space. But they did move into this home very recently with this as it stands as the current footprint of their house. Despite the odd lot shape, and given that there is a way to do it on the Ellery facing side of the house, potentially, I too struggle with this one.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Mr. Eisenbacher?
Yeah, looking at the site, it does appear that although not easy, that it could be placed on the other side of the house where there is setback available. The one thing that I struggle with is the setback to the neighbors is still extremely large because they have the common areas in between. So the lots all get made smaller because they set aside this extra area for buffer, but then the homeowners that purchase these properties are not able to utilize their property easily for common items, rear decks, rear sunrooms, and this is not an excessively large sunroom request, but it's still going into the setback that was put in place by the builder. And unfortunately, the homeowner didn't have full knowledge when he signed up for the house. But since there is the opportunity on the property for a sunroom, I can't, in good faith, with our charge of our 5 criteria, make a motion to approve this.
Mr. Green?
I'd actually like to follow on that because we've had some recent cases along those lines with builders of developments who have perhaps forgotten that stairs down from a rear door on the second floor might be a good idea. But that is an unfortunate case of caveat emptor, and perhaps that's something that the Planning Commission should consider when they're accepting proposals to ensure that the desirability of homes in our fair city is as good as the curb appeal. It's real once you get in the home. That said, unfortunately, this is a case of caveat emptor, I think.
All right, thank you, Mr. Green. I'll just offer my comment. I think that, again, going back to the criteria that we're required to consider and validate whether the applicant has presented evidence as to all five, I don't think that, I think this difficulty was created by the current owner or previous owner. I think there is, knowledge of what the zoning laws require when you build, and I don't see a showing that there was an inability to build this within within the existing zoning requirements. While the property is a unique shape, I don't see how that bears here, where either house could have been constructed in a different fashion, or has been discussed by my colleagues, you could put this in a different area of the property within the existing setback requirements. And so in a sense, I think it's more of a request of a personal nature than anything that specifically runs with a difficulty with the land. So for that reason, I would not support the variance request. Do we have any other discussion? Anyone want to make a motion? Mr. McCauley?
I'd like to make the motion to deny the request for the rear setback variance for 5305 Ragmore, Troy, Michigan.
Second? Mr. Green, saw two hands, but Mr. Green seconded. Any further discussion on that motion, or should we proceed to a vote? I don't see any discussion, so Mr. Evans?
And on the motion to deny, Mr. McCauley,
Yes.
Mr. Forster,
Yes.
Mr. Kencree,
Yes.
Mr. Bossenbrook,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Chambers,
Yes.
Mr. Eisenbacher.
Yes.
Okay, motion has carried and the variance has been denied. Thank you to the applicants for joining us this evening and for presenting. We appreciate it. With that, we conclude item number 6, our hearing of the cases, and we move on to item number 7, our communications. Do we have any communications, Mr. Evans?
Not written communications, but the new board members might not be aware of this, but Oakland County is still providing an online training on June 30th. We have until the 28th or 29th to get anyone on this board who would like to participate. It is virtual, and it's in the evening. So I would recommend that if any member wants more information about it, Jackie can get that to them, or if they could let Jackie or I know sometime this week, if you'd be interested in the city signing you up for that, we'll pay for it. I have been to the training a few years ago, and I think some of the members here were, and I'm seeing people nodding. It was very good.
Okay. That's good information. Thank you. Move on to item number 8. Any miscellaneous business for the board? No. And any item number 9, any public comment? Do we have anyone else, I guess, on Zoom that wishes to provide a public comment? Not seeing anything or anyone? We move on to item number 10. and we will adjourn this month's meeting. Thank you, and I guess we'll see everyone in July.